Well, today we're back at Cedar Creek and I'm calling this second chance photography. You can probably hear I'm a little bit puffed out and there's a really good reason for that. But I found this really nice little spot. Now I was here just a couple of weeks ago, photographed a medieval archway. I'll put a link up to there now and you can see it. But today's totally different. It's around 10:30 in the morning. I've been here for a few hours already, but not at this spot here. But it's very overcast day. It was raining this morning. And look at this, we've got some beautiful scenery here. So I came here to Cedar Creek Falls, hoping not to photograph the falls itself, but there was a great tree just below the falls that was really interesting. It looked interesting on Google Maps and all that. That was my plan for today. It's very overcast, there wasn't going to be any harsh shadows, so I go like, yeah, I'll go up there. And I spent about 20 minutes walking up the creek, couldn't find Cedar Creek Falls. I don't know if I got myself lost or whatever, but the creek was just right beside me. After about 20 minutes I go like, okay, I can't hear the falls, I'm just giving up. My health's not 100%, I know when to say enough is enough and to come back. Walk back to the car park, lo and behold there was a photographer there just setting up and he showed me, he goes, well this is what I got. And it showed the track was on the left hand side of the creek, I was going on the right hand side of the creek. He said, well you just come up with me. I said, mate, I'm buggered, so I just can't walk back up there again. I can just find a second place. I've already done another video and it's not up on YouTube yet, and I took a couple of really nice photos just up the road. But I walked up here and I found this nice little spot which will be great to show you how to photograph just a stream. There's all these rocks and there's just some water flowing along. Should be great. So let's get rock hopping because it's only a couple of meters down here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is Cedar Creek. When you're around creeks after it's rained all that, you've got to be very careful. These rocks can be very slippery. So really pay attention to where you're walking. We're just going to do a bit of rock hopping here. So this is the spot I was telling you about. You can see down here, we'll just come up here, do a bit more rock hopping. Just got to get up on this ledge here. And look at that. See that? That just looks so nice. There's a big tree on the side here. But I'm not interested in that. All I'm interested is right in front of us there. Now I'm going to shoot in portrait orientation today because I don't want too much of the side of the creek. That's just going to be very distracting. I don't like shooting down too much. For today, this is the only way that I'm going to get the whole area here. See if I get low down here? You see we're just losing the depth? All we see is just the front rocks here. If I raise up here like this, the higher I go, do you see the more depth I have? And this is what I want. I want depth. I want to see all those little ripples there. So let's set up. I'll catch you in a minute. So I'm all set up. See how I'm actually lifted the tripod quite high up. I'm on this very big rock here, looking down on the creek. Now, I normally say you've got to get close down to the water and all that when we're photographing, but in this instance, I actually want to see the whole creek. I don't just want the foreground. Sometimes it's great if there's like a small little waterfall or like a cascade to get up close and personal. But here, what I want to see is the whole creek. I want to see the water just meander through all these rocks here. Look how it's nicely framed. There's just a tree like leaning into the frame here, but from front to back, I've got subject. At the front here, I've got some nice rocks on the left and it just leads into a bit of greenery on both sides. Now here's two photos that I just took. One from the rock up here and then one from the creek with my camera still angling down. Look at the compositions. Can you see that they're totally different? So today I'm using my Nikon D500, but I don't have the Takina 11-20. Why? Because I'm so far away from my subject and I don't want everything else. It's a very overcast day, like I said before. I don't want all that. What I want is just the creek. So I've used the Nikon 18-140 at around 32-35 mils just to frame my composition. I just want people to focus on what I want them to focus on. If I zoom out and see all the extra, it's going to detract from what I want people to see. Now I really think about the focal length that I'm going to use because I knew as soon as I got here, I looked at this and I go like, the Takina 11-20 is going to be too wide. I know that because I'm so far away from the creek. So I quickly swapped lenses, put the Nikon 18-140 and I just kept zooming around, playing with the focal length until I got the focal length that I wanted, which was around 32-35 mils. And it looks great. All I've got at the moment is just a polarizer. I've stated many times, when you're around water, you really want a polarizer. So using the polarizer is going to give me separation. The creek here is like a browny colour. I've got the foliage which is green, and then the rocks are a grey brown colour. So all that together is going to give me really good separation. It's going to give me 3 different colours in there, and it's going to look ripper. Now my camera settings, I'm shooting on, the white balance is sunny, daylight. My ISO is 100. I always want the lowest ISO possible. On this camera, it's ISO 100. My aperture is f11. I want as much depth of field as possible, and I'm going to focus quite close. But at this range, with this lens here, understand that the back rocks down there are not going to be as sharp as the front ones. I'd really want to stack my focus. I'd have to take a couple of photos, maybe 3, to get front to back in focus. But for the first photos here, we're just going to take single images, and I'll go up to f14. This will just give me slightly more, and then when we're going to stack just a couple of photos, I'll come back down to f11. So we'll go up to f14. I'm on manual exposure. We talked about the exposure triangle. I've got my ISO set to 100, my aperture set to f14. What's the last one left? My shutter speed. So I use my shutter speed to give me the correct exposure. And on the Nikon D500 here, if I press the OK button here, it gives me my histogram. So it gives me my metering here. So I can just adjust. Okay, it's showing me slightly underexposed, correctly exposed, overexposed. I come down here, correctly exposed, beautiful. It's saying to me, 1/4 of a second. Let's take a photo. And I'm going to focus on these front rocks here. So press the button. Wow, look at that. Now remember, these are just JPEGs, because at the end of the video, I show you what the JPEG looks like and then what the RAW looks like edited in Adobe Lightroom. This looks beautiful. Watch what happens here. I'll turn the polarizer so that it's not affected on the water. And I'll focus on the same spot again. Now I've got a touch screen here, so all I have to do is touch where I want it. And look at the difference between the 2 photos. Now look at the 2 photos here. So the first one here with the polarizer looks beautiful. The second one here without the polarizer, well, the polarizer, I just turned it around so that it wasn't affecting the water. It's so distracting. There's glare. It's like, oh, please, like, can I put some sunnies on? This is why I state you need a polarizer if you're around water. Now, I was saying that I zoomed in because I didn't want a distraction. I'll quickly zoom out now and show you what I mean. So we'll zoom out to 18 mils. I'll tilt it up a little bit because I don't want too much water. Again, I'll focus just on the rocks in the foreground here. So this is at around 35 mils, and this is at 18 mils. This would be nice if we had some blue sky very early in the morning, because the sun rises behind me here. I'd have the sun coming up behind me. It's coming up for a ride, and I'd have beautiful blue skies. But today, because it's overcast, look at that. That white is just so distracting. What I tell people is, once you've got your nice composition that you're happy with, is there any reason to take any more photos with the same composition? There isn't. Sometimes I take 2 just to be on the safe side, but I know that the first composition I got here is going to be a winner. So what I've done after zooming out, I've zoomed back in, but I've moved the camera just slightly, because remember that tree I was saying about? Now I've got just that tree in the top left here, and it really looks nice. So I tell people, like, take a few different compositions. It's digital. You can throw out the ones you don't like, but at least you've got a couple of different photos, a couple of different compositions, I mean, so that when you go home, you can say, okay, well, I've got, let's say 3 or 4, which one looks best? And that's what I do. I just look, which one looks best? I start editing them a little bit in Lightroom, and I go, okay, this one looks the best, and then that's it. I just go hammer and tong, edit that photo to the end. And I just leave the others. I don't delete them. I just leave the others on my computer, because later I might come back and edit them and just show the differences between compositions. So this looks really nice. We're still at f14. We'll focus on the front rocks. Beautiful. Now, what focal length was I using here? 26 mils. So the first one was around 35. This one is at 26, halfway between 18 and 35. So I'm really happy with these photos, but you can just see the water flow. There's no smoothness in the water. It's still quite sharp because it's only 1/4 of a second. So I'm going to put my 6-stop Hader filter on, and this will just smooth down the exposure a little bit. Let's put it on. Remember, it's a 6-stop. I'm in manual mode. All I have to do is I'm shooting in 1/3 of a stop. So I multiply 3 by 6 is 18. I just bring my dial down by 18 and I'll be very close to it. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16, 17, 18. Still showing a bit dark. I'm at 30 seconds at F14. Now I've got a 2-second timer delay on here. I need that. Sometimes I shake, but also because I'm touching the screen here, I don't want any jitters. So focus still back on the screen. Now that told me that it didn't lock on. It showed that it tried to focus, but it didn't lock on. Really, what I should have done is just left my focus alone because I hadn't changed the composition. That's my bad. Putting an ND filter on doesn't change your focus point. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that because I'm not sure whether, so I'll use the back button focus. Now it's telling me it can't focus. So I'll come back up here. I have to reset. There, beautiful. Now, come back to 30 seconds, put the ND filter on. Now I don't cut these parts out of the video because I want to show you that everybody makes mistakes. You just learn from your mistakes. So no need to touch, remember autofocus. Let's just take a photo. Beautiful. This is fantastic. Let's zoom in a little bit. This is just what I wanted. Just enough flow to show people. This is where some people get carried away sometimes. They'll go like, oh great, flowing water, let's put a 10-stop filter on and smooth it like a baby's bum. You lose all definition in the water. You don't want that. So that looks great. Now I know in the video you can see my backpack and all that on the side, and you can see the rock in the foreground here, but on my camera, I don't want that rock in there. So I've adjusted my focal length so that I don't have this rock. And I'll take just one photo, same settings, 20 seconds, F14, and I focused about a third of the way into the image. So we'll take a shot. Even with the polarizer, I'm still getting just that slight amount of reflections, but it looks beautiful. Here are a few of my best photos, the JPEG and the RAW file edited in Adobe Lightroom. Now I'd appreciate if you left me a comment telling me which photo you like best, the one in portrait orientation or the one shot in landscape. I really want to see what people think. To me, I like the one in portrait orientation, but you might feel that no, the one in landscape orientation looks best. If you found value in this video, give me a big thumbs up. I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps me out. Stay safe, enjoy your photography, and I'll see you next time.